Hello and welcome to your weekly podcast here on Four Lads Had a Dream. My name's Andrew and I'm joined this week by three of my very favourite podders, Stevie, Shona and Kenny. It's very nice to be back. Apparently I was missed. I barely noticed really. Stevie only mentioned it, 4 or 5 times each pod that he did. So, in any event, it's lovely to be back with you guys, both the podders as well as the lovely audience as well. And we're in the middle of an international break, so there's not a great deal of news to dig into. So what we thought we'd do instead is dig into Phillipe Clement's past year. Come Tuesday, so the day after we record, it will have been 1 year that he's been in position as Rangers manager. So I thought this would be a good moment to kind of reflect, take a look back, see what's gone well, see what's gone less well, and generally just have a little gossip and chat about all things Phillipe Clement. So I'm gonna say hello to everyone individually because it's been a while since I've done this, and I just feel a little bit rusty. So, Shona, pleasure to have you here with us.
Guess who's back, Andrew? Guess who's back? It's good to have you back. So yeah, I'm looking forward to tonight's show. A bit different, so yeah, let's dive into it.
For sure, Kenny. Pleasure as always, my friend. You've actually just muted yourself there, Kenny, so I'm glad that we're back on a good foot.
I said, it's nice you could eventually join us, Andrew. Thank you.
That's right. Thought I'd make an appearance after a month or so. And Stevie, the pressure's off, mate. I'm back.
I'm delighted you're here. Andrew, I'd like to also say it's nice of Kenny to wear his dressing gown for tonight's podcast.
Chilly up north, isn't it?
It is.
So before we dig into to Phillipe Clement, I just wanted to mention that Saturday's probably best player in the Rangers women's game against Glasgow City, which was a poor first half, but a better second half. Cathy Hill, who Four Lads proudly sponsor, was called up for the Scotland's women's national team. So I just want to extend a brief congratulations to her. I'd also ask if you haven't listened to it, have a little listen or a watch of the vlog that Shona and Stevie did from the women's game because, it was typically exciting. It always feels like you're at the game. And, for me, who's stranded down south and I've been confined to my sick bed for the past week, it's a pleasure to get a little taste of the game. So, I enjoyed it at least. I think anyone who wants to check it out will do as well. Let's dig right into it. Shona, I'm going to start with you first. Let me know when you want me to pull up the stats. Just as a general overview, first of all, how's the past year gone for Phillipe Clement?
Well, I think when he first came in, he got those, nearly 17 games undefeated. I think round about that anyway. I think it was 14 wins, draws against Prague, Aberdeen and Limassol, but looking big wins against Hibs and I think it was Dundee at the time, but I think Stevie will be able to tell me that. I think it was 4 and 5-0. Can't really remember. But yeah, and then obviously the massive win that we had against Real Betis. Came in, had a really good start, managed to get the team who were really, really, really poor at the time. And he managed to get a tune out of quite a few players. And I think, what he had was he had like a kind of pragmatic, kind of direct approach to games. And it really worked well. But I think what we can talk about is since the Motherwell game last season, it's kind of fallen off of a cliff and it's not really kind of got to the same kind of heights as what we had previous to that. I think a lot of it kind of came back to the 1-0 defeat that we had at Parkhead. But I think if you were to try and sum up Phillipe Clement's tenure so far, I think it's quite kind of 50-50 at this moment in time with fans. I think fans don't really know what they're going to expect this season with the amount of changes that we brought in the summer. I think we've got to still give him a bit of time, but he did say that we're going to see our best football October, November. And with this month being so important, I think that Kilmarnock and Aberdeen game will give us a good stead as to where we're going to go this season. I think, is it Aberdeen are unbeaten in 7 games so far? So that's going to be our tough one, and there's no doubt about it, it is going to be tough. So, I think overall, I think it's very hard to kind of compare what we had beforehand, but obviously we had Beale. But, I think we've just got to try and give this manager a bit of time. I think with the amount of stuff that's happening above him, I think he's now been the man that's had to try and steady the ship, as we like to see. I think the amount of changes that he's had since he's came in with the board, etc., chairman, people leaving, and Niles Coppin coming in. So yeah, I think a lot of it. I think it will take 3 or 4 transfer windows to get this right. I think we've got to stick by the manager. I think it's unfortunate if we don't, because we cannot chop and change. This is the one thing I've said before. We cannot chop and change managers, but it's up to Clement to now prove us all wrong. And let's see how this season goes. But I'm sure we'll go into, the guys can give their overview of what they thought of Clement so far. But I think a lot of it, for me, is down to injuries. A lot of the injuries that we've had, especially out in the left and the right wing. I think that's part of Clement's game, that he wants to have wingers that are really good and want to cut inside and become inverted, and have your fullbacks more kind of like hitting the byline. But look, we'll wait and see what happens in the future. But look, I think at the moment, I think a lot of people are kind of up in the air as to how they're going to view Clement, because he had a really good start, but ever since that Motherwell game, it's not really quite been the same, has it?
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely fair to say, Shona. Kenny, I mean, your take, mate.
Actually, quite similar to Shona. I thought he when he turned up last year, I thought he got an instant reaction off the players. I thought they really responded to him. And I tend to agree again with Shona. And that Motherwell game seemed to really just throw a spanner right in his works for some reason. It just, we just fell right off the rails from there. A lot of that was to do with injuries. A lot of that was to do with perhaps a lot of people knowing that they weren't going to be here in the summer. A lot of uncertainty. This season he's having this issue where there is it's almost like a dozen in, a dozen out. That's going to take a little bit of time for players to bed in and get settled here. But in the main, for me, I quite like him. I can see what he's trying to do. But again, I'll agree with Shona that you'll see the best of us in October, November statement could come back and bite him in the backside, because people are going to hold him to that. Maybe it's slightly unfairly, because I think it's almost a flippant throwaway comment that he said that it'll take a few months, and people, what people here are like. We will take that as his gospel, that we will just click, this month or next month. But this month's a big month for Rangers, so happy anniversary and all that, but results count. And for me, I would give him a B plus, perhaps, in terms of where we were and to where he managed to get us. And I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt of the turmoil at the football club over the last 5 or 6 months. And again, I would concur with Shona again and just say that we have to stick with a manager this whole season anyway. I would suggest that regardless to what happens, the board, whoever that may be, give him, start making a judgment in kind of February, March time for the summer. That's what I would think.
Sure. Stevie has shown of Kenny and said a mixed bag, effectively. What's your kind of view on it?
Started well, delivered a trophy, went on a 14-15 game unbeaten run, something like that. Got us to a really good point in the league, and it all tailed off, which we could expect from a squad that had repeatedly done that under previous managers. Didn't manage to beat Celtic in the 4 attempts last season, but in the 4 attempts, 2-1, 3-3, 2-1 and 1-0, they were all pretty close. So at least we had something. We didn't have anything result-wise, but we had at least, right, okay, maybe if he gets his own players in, we might be able to get somewhere. So there was that chain of thought. However, that slightly went back at the start of the season when they fairly scalped us quite easily 3-0, and it was a bit of a disjointed performance. So I would say it's been very good, erratic, since, possibly. I think that's the best way to describe it. And there's questions, Andrew, I think fair questions, over his strategy, over his kind of tactical output. But when you don't win games, it's always really easy to decide that, you know, somebody's at fault, etc. You've got to remember that Phillipe Clement has had to basically overhaul the squad. He's had to downsize the wages bill. He's had to downsize the kind of calibre of player we've had, you know, and the mainstay of players we've had, Goldson, Lundstrom, Barisic, Jack. You know, it's a tall order to take them away from a squad. And he's also suffered, and this won't be popular, but he's also suffered from having players like James Tavernier who are no longer capable of hitting the heights that they were under previous managers, Gio, etc., when they would have kind of pulled them through. So Phillipe Clement's tenure is a difficult one, because we asked him to get a new philosophy, we asked him to get a new strategy and signing players, which he's done. We asked him to rip up the squad, which he's done as much as possible and will continue to do. But we still expect him to win every game 3-0 convincingly. So there needs to be, I think, a little bit of recognition of what he's done, the situation he's had to undertake. And yeah, you can question him. I don't think I'm overly convinced by him. I think strategy and tactically and all that, he's quite there. But I am prepared to give the context and look at a bigger picture. And I think the next few months are crucial for him in terms of where we go. I think this little segment of 6-7 games we've got, when we've got Bucharest and Olympiacos away, and we go to Kilmarnock and Aberdeen away in the league, and then we've got Motherwell in the League Cup as well to get to the final. So, you know, it's perhaps a season-defining little spell for Phillipe Clement. But in that, there's lots of opportunity, Andrew. It's easy to say negatively that we might not get the results, but there's opportunity there as well. So, listen, I like him. I do like him. It might just be a bold thing, but I do like him. And I want him to do well, but I wanted Gio to do well. I like Gio. I wanted Beale to do well. I like Beale. You know, I wanted Gerrard to do well. Everybody did. So I would just like a wee bit of stability on that. And I'm grateful for the fact he's actually here, because everywhere else in the club there's no stability in it. So for Phillipe to be here as our kind of figurehead at the moment, I'm okay with. He needs to deliver, absolutely he does, and understand why there's question marks. But I'm trying to be contextually fair to everything he's had to go through to get to where we are now, Andrew. So I think there is it's worth, you know, considering everything when you evaluate where we are.
Yeah, I think, as you say, there's been some bad hands dealt, I think, in terms of where we've been at. Shona, I'm going to come back to you, and I'm going to pull up the stats that we've had lovingly prepared by another Andrew, which, you know, happened without my approval while I was away. I'm not happy about that, but we'll park that for now. But I'm going to bring these up just to have a look-see at previous season and then this season. But Shona, if you want to take us through these and just pull out some of the highlights, I think, from your perspective.
Yeah, I think it's quite hard to kind of give you an overall view on this season so far, because he's only played 13 games. But I think what you can see from the previous one when he was here last season, about the amount of goals that we scored and compared to the amount of goals that we conceded, and obviously his win percentage. But I still think that those draws and those losses were a massive. As I said, I think a lot of that was down to after the Motherwell game and the capitulation that we had within our squad. But look at that, 56 matches, he's won 38, lost 9 and drawn 9 with a win percentage of 67.8%. Now that's just slightly lower than what Beale had when he was with us. So yeah, he's won the League Cup. I think that's a good thing that he has won a trophy in his bag. But I think you want that winning percentage to be slightly higher. You want that to be in the plus 75, 80%. I think I would imagine, being a Rangers manager at this football club. So I think he's still got a wee bit of work to do on that. Look, we have to take into consideration the amount of players that have had to leave and the amount of players that have had to come in. It's a total new way of looking at how we're going to try and transform this team. Get into, like he said, he's had no money to come in, but I think it was around about, what did I say? We've spent around about 11.6 million, and we've only managed to bring in around about 3.8 to 4.3 million pounds worth in. So we need to see what the books are like in January, because I do believe that we need an extra few players. But I think what you need to see with Clement is around about, everyone wants to go on about his style of play. But I'm sure we'll go into that. But I think the percentages, the winning percentage is probably a slight concern if you're going to compare it to other managers that we've had previously. So, but look, apart from that, overall, I think he's done okay. I just think that we need to go to a different level. And I think all Rangers fans expect that. And I think when you look at those, lost 9, drawn 9, it's a lot of points, isn't it, when you look at that? So, but no, I think he got off to a really good start, and I think it's about now what can he do this season. And look, I think if he can get that win over Aberdeen and Kilmarnock, it will get the fans back on board to maybe just. It's kind of like one of those ones where it could be win or bust for him this month, can't it? As to how fans see Phillipe Clement. If he gets a away win against Kilmarnock and Aberdeen, it can kind of slightly turn the fans get into your November, December time. So, but I think the biggest one for the fans we'll look at is probably the losses against Celtic. That's something that needs to be worked on. But I'll let the guys discuss that. And yeah, I think the winning percentage just needs to be slightly higher for me as a Rangers manager.
Yeah, Kenny, is there anything in particular that jumps out for you looking through those?
On the stats, the average goals per game scored this season is 1.46 to the conceded is 0.84. That's not great, right? That nobody can pretend that is. That's pretty poor. That has to, both of those have to improve quite significantly, I would think. But again, it's a new squad, almost a brand new squad, a brand new team. That it does take a little bit of time. Unfortunately, as Shona's said there as well, this is a big month. There's some really tough fixtures here. Kilmarnock away right away, then it ends the month up at Pittodrie. So that's they're not going to be easy. Europe will take care of itself. Other than that, on those stats, bear in mind, I think he'd won, what was it? Did he not win 18 of his first 21 or something like that? Something like that. If you were to take those games away, those stats don't look quite so clever. Other than that...
Kenny, are you saying if you take away all the wins, then the stats look less good?
No. What I'm saying is, mate, is that again, it comes back to that period, February, March time, where we seem to drop off a cliff. Since then, the stats, if they were to be taken in isolation, I don't think they'd look great at all. So, in that respect, I would think that. There's very much room for improvement, or statistically on those. For this season, I can see this season's stats being much more like last season's come the end of the season. But I tend to agree with Shona. I don't think that's particularly good enough. You'd be looking at, 73, 74% is what you would be looking at. I think in terms of a win percentage, that's going to have to happen for us to challenge. So. That's what I would think there on the stats, mate. I think it's, as I say, for me, more than anything else, looking back on his first few months and then looking back since February to now, it's a tale of, two different stories, isn't it? So that's kind of my take on that.
Mm-hmm. I think, Stevie, you in particular had highlighted, obviously the upcoming games, how crucial some of those are going to be. I think the Aberdeen one at the end of the month in particular is going to be a big one because, unfortunately, in terms of the league table right now, it doesn't look too pretty for us. That game is a chance to, hopefully, start pulling back some ground and get ourselves into a nicer position,
Yeah, it is. And it's going to be a crucial game, but, that can change. There's only 7 games going, first of all. So, we've dropped 5 points and the other 2 have won every single game, but they need to play each other and in the very next game. And then we need to go up there. So that picture can change pretty quickly, either against or for us. But we got to think positively in terms of, we could claw back points on both of them. So let's see how that goes. And, we concentrate on ourselves. What I would say, there's a wee bit of context. Kenny was talking about goals conceded. 10 of those goals conceded came against Kyiv, Celtic and Lyon. What that tells me is that, you know, and there was also 7 clean sheets in those 8 victories. So that tells me that we're a pretty decent side against a certain standard of opposition. But when there's a slight increase in performance level needed, like even, for example, going to Hearts away, then we're not quite capable yet of making that step up. Kilmarnock and Aberdeen in the next few weeks are probably that level that I'm talking about, where you need to step up in games to win those ones. So what I take from the stats showdown, Andrew, which is a question you asked to Andrew, to Kenny and Shona, is that now's the time to make the step. Now's the time to take your performance levels and results up. Shona's right, result win percentage. So I suppose that's the biggest thing for me. We're going to find out, aren't we, very quickly. If this goes badly wrong for Clement, then it's really difficult for me to see how he recovers, because league-wise it's not going to be pretty. People will start reacting. The other things that are going on at the football club will mean that scrutiny and reaction will be massive and quite potentially toxic. So it's not a win or bust, but it's a very crucial period. And, you know, if you say that he's had his bedding in period in terms of this squad this season so far, we're now going to be, you know, 20th of October by the time we play again. It's really about time then that we saw the fruits of labour, etc., in that team and the performances. So that has to start Sunday. And you're right, this little run of fixtures, as I said before, these are going to really define where we are over Christmas and into this, you know, title challenge as such. But what I would say, Andrew, is that traditionally the last few years our Christmas period is proven to be quite difficult. I think it's not that way this year. So, you know, you get through this and you go on a good run, like Shona says, you start to galvanise, you get the fans behind you, you find form. So there's 2 ways to look at everything, you know, and it just depends on what happens in the next, or what Rangers decide to do in these next few weeks. But it's certainly a lot to ponder for Phillipe Clement, that's for sure.
I think this is why I'm just going to come in here. I think this is why I've said about a number 6 how crucial it is to Clement's kind of style of play. I think when we had the likes of John Lewisham, I'm not saying that John Lewisham was the answer, but when he went through that purple patch of being that kind of number 6 role, we were very aggressive on and off the ball. And I think what we've saw today, this season, when we are very aggressive on and off the ball, we are capable of doing really, really well. It's when we're not so aggressive. So when we played against Malmo, I thought our pressing, how we were aggressive on and off the ball really worked, and how that's how we got our win. I think when we're not like that, because I thought the first 20, 25 minutes in that Old Firm game when we pressed and we were very aggressive, we could see what we were trying to do. It's then when we stop off and we pull off, that's when teams can kind of open us up. And that's where I feel as if like teams especially can play us through the middle of the park. And this is why I think a number 6 in that position is imperative in the January transfer window. So it allows us to be more aggressive on and off the ball. It's just a wee thing that I've taken from Clement in the last, like the games that we have won. I've noticed that we've pressed and we've been more aggressive and we look really, really good. It's when we're not doing those things, we're then making ourselves culpable of mistakes. And like you've noticed, Stevie, and so is Kenny in previous games, that we're very cut open, we're easy to pass through the middle of the park, balls over the top, like you said before. And I know this comes back to pre-season, but if you look at the games that we have done well in, like the Malmo game, we did press well, we did do well on and off the ball. But I just think that it's why we need to get a number 6 in, because I think that's the one that will basically be the kind of the missing piece of the jigsaw, as I like to put it. So that and having wingers fit, we need to have, see, if you want Clement's style of play to work, you need to have wingers who are fit and on form. I think we saw that last year when Sima was in, and Sima was getting double figures for us and how important he was. Even I think in one of the European games, he even played at left back and looked like he was man in the match. So I think that's how his style of play works, is that having people are very aggressive, ball-winning midfielders. If that doesn't work, that's when you're getting opened up against, and that's where you're making mistakes within that area. but also think as well that that's why it's so important that he's got wingers that are doing the job that he asked them to do. I think what he wants with his fullbacks is to have them, like I said before, he wants his wingers to stay wide but then come inverted, and he wants his wingers to overlap. But I don't know what you guys think, but that's why I think it all comes down to getting that number 6 in January and having wingers fit for this kind of style of play.
Kenny?
Yeah, I would just say that, Shona makes a good point. It was quite clear that the club were looking for that defensive holding midfielder all summer, and we ended up not getting one. And in that respect, I personally feel that, he's been in charge 56 matches. He's lost 9. 4 of them are a Celtic. That's not good. That's got to change, obviously. The other, another 2 of those are in Europe as well. So, look, it's one of those things that I personally feel that Rangers fans have got a little bit of a decision to make. Do you want to be patient and understand that any manager coming in at this minute in time, where we are actually at as a football club, is going to need a minimum 2-3 transfer windows to actually build his team with the funds that are going to be available. He's going to have to wheel and deal. He's going to have to chop and change. Not every signing's going to work. It's the big games that will define him, as we've all said here. It's those bigger games, those make or break games that Rangers as a football club over the last 3 years have struggled to win the majority of those, whether that's been under Clement, Beale, or Gio. It's just the way we have been over the period, and that's my kind of take on this. That we can see all these stats. It then becomes a bit of an eye test. It's what your eyes tell you to a certain degree, and opinion is very split at this minute in time about what people are watching, and that's where I personally I quite like what he's trying to do, particularly with the ball. We actually discussed this last week, but it's off the ball that is concerning me a little bit, and that's why I've jumped in, because Shona's made that point about that number 6, that defensive holding midfielder that is so important in the system that he's trying to play, I feel. And that's why I said again over the last couple of weeks there, I genuinely do feel sometimes that if he can't get the players that he really wants, to get them at his disposal, then a change of shape or formation might have to happen. Or he's going to put himself under a bit more pressure if he doesn't get the results that we need. It's kind of my take on it. As I say, the stats tell you that there's room for improvement, but the eye test is dividing opinion a little bit. So yeah, we're coming up to an interesting period, as Stevie had said as well.
I think there's got to be a sense of pragmatism. If you've got 2 of your left wingers out injured, I don't know how rigidly you can stick to that formation, as you say, Kenny, because you just leave yourself exposed. We saw kind of, unfortunately, how ineffectual Ross McCrory was, McCausland was, and the left wing. I think he's a promising kid. He's got a lot of talent, but left wing isn't his position. I think it was a bit unfair to stick him out there. So, we've seen to a certain extent, trying to fit square pegs into round holes with some of the players, and with some players like Sterling, who I think you can play in literally any position in the squad, that can work. But with others, it has not, and it's cost us at times. So, as we've said, it's going to be interesting what happens, Stevie. We're looking ahead here at this run of games. We know that, barring signing any free agents, which feels unlikely at this moment in time, we're not going to be able to make any changes to the squad until January. So we're kind of stuck with what we've got at the moment. I don't know. I mean, I guess to ask one more question then, In terms of the players that Phil Clement has brought in, have you been impressed overall? You know, just not with specific players necessarily, but with, you know, the sum of all of the players that have come in so far, I guess.
I think it's a bit of a mixed bag. There's certainly potential, you know, barring Jeffy, Eagleman, you know, you can look at saying, yeah, they're going to be okay. They need time to improve. And then you look at Bayrami and think, right, he might be that little bit of quality. So you think, if you can get 2 or 3 more like him around him in the spine of the team, etc., then okay. You look at Robin Proper and he's going to be okay against okay opposition. Against the better opposition, I'm a wee bit troubled. Against Lyon, against Kiev, against Celtic, he done things that concern me. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. Cortez is just really unfortunate. There's a big worry about how much money we commit to him. Diamante's performances are up and down. He's a bit of a youngster. But overall, you know, I think that when you're asking him to rip everything up and do what he done, then I can understand why it's going to be difficult. Not every single signing is going to be a 10 out of 10. What we do need, Andrew, is over this next few months particularly, is for somebody to really step up and hit form. So you really need Bayrami to come back and just put down markers all over the place, just start playing, just start hitting form. You need the midfielders to kind of hit form. You need Dessers to regain his shooting boots. You need Danilo to be fit for more than 10 minutes, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of little moving parts, I think, that Phillipe Clement is relying on. We talked about the left side there, but Redvan could be back after international. He's available for selection. And then could Jeffy then go forward and play on the left? Could Bayrami play as your 10? All of a sudden, that's a wee bit more exciting. Tierney's opened up to the fans a wee bit in the last one. He scored a couple of goals. Is he now going to power on? These are things. Will Danilo come back and pressure Dessers into them two hitting form? You know, there's a lot of moving parts for Phillipe Clement that he's got to rely on. So it's going to be interesting, Andrew. And I just think now's the time. He's put a lot of faith in these boys as well. So I think now's the time that they step up a wee bit and kind of hit the form. And it's not all about Phillipe Clement. Once you go over the white line, it's not like he can't affect people missing chances. He can't, you know, he can't put the ball in the net, etc. So there needs to be a wee bit of responsibility from the players as well. And like Kenny said, you know, I'm not sure if you go and get anybody else, one, who would you get, and two, you know, who's available for us in our price range, etc., that you could come in that would make a massive, wonderful difference. So, you know, this is going to be vital, but it's also vital that the players step up and help a wee bit as well. So in terms of the summer business, Andrew, it's a mixed bag at the moment. I think that's fair. But in the coming months, I think they owe it to the manager to up their performance levels as much as possible and start returning the faith a wee bit.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair. We'll take away the stats now. I'll make them disappear. We can look at our lovely faces in close-up instead. I want to ask people to check out the blog that's gone up. I think it was today, Stevie, which is basically looking back at Clement's first year, at least the first part of it, in text form by another Andy, which I'm slightly worried about the situation that's developing a bit. But I think Kenny is going to do part 2. So, you know, Kenny's going to focus on the negative stuff, which is great. And Andy got to do all the fun stuff at the start. But I would encourage people to check that out. The link for that will be in the description below. It also got released as an audio thing as well, which was very well received. So, yeah, I would advise folks to check that out if they haven't already. We could, you know, obviously chat about this for the rest of the night, but I know Stevie's keen to keep these nice and compact, bite-sized, if you like. So I'll go around the horn again and thank all of my lovely co-hosts for easing me back into things nice and gently. It's been a pleasure talking to you all. So, Shona, always a pleasure.
Never a chore, Andrew. I'll watch part 1. Don't know if I'll listen to part 1, listening to part 2 and listening to Kenny go on and on. I don't know if I want to listen to that, but no, I'll give it a listen, sorry. And yeah, no, I definitely think everybody should tune in. And just lastly from me, look, guys, we've got a fantastic new show starting on Wednesday with an Andrew. Not this Andrew. Well, you're going to be on as a guest this time. So, no, I really want guys to kind of come on board with this as a Q&A session. It will be around Clement this week. This is what we're going to be talking about. So there will be some points. Get your questions in. Have a wee chat with the guys. So looking forward to, and thanks very much for Andrew for coming on as a guest.
Hey, held out on you guys for nearly a month, so may as well make an effort to get involved and get back into the mix for a change. Kenny, thank you, my friend. It's always good to talk to you. Positive or negative, I suppose.
Yeah, welcome back, mate. Nice to have you back. Just to stop Stevie moaning constantly, maybe. But no, it's been, listen, fair play to Stevie. He's done a fine job in your absence, but you're better, mate. That's all I'm going to say.
Thanks, pal. I'll chuck the 20 quid over to you via PayPal later on, all right? And last but not least, of course, the fantastic host in my absence, Stevie. I'd echo what Kenny said. You were great, mate. All good stuff. Thank you, my friend, for coming on.
It's good to have you back, Andrew. Echo what Shona says. We've got quite a run of shows coming up for you to enjoy. On Wednesday, the live Q&A. That's a new show, so you can tune in and get your questions in, see what everybody's saying. Andrew Stewart will be hosting. Andrew Anderson joins him along with Andrew McKellar. So that should be fun. Good luck with that. And then we're back on Friday for the flagship weekend podcast. Hopefully be covering the games on Sunday involving the men and women as well. And then on Sunday night, that Sunday show is back as well. So listen, there's plenty of content there, as we said today about the blog. Four Lads of the Dream is a writing platform. It started off as a blog, thousands of people reading it, and it's still there. So if people want to go and check out the thoughts of the guys, we try and put out something every week. This week it is a wee bit on Phillipe Clement from Andy McKellar, and you can also hear him kind of read it to you as well as a kind of audio blog version. So people prefer to have a wee voiceover as they read, or when they're walking the dog, they can do that. 6 minutes, I think you can find that on all pod streaming sites, on YouTube, etc. So we are trying our very best to get some content out for you, and hopefully people are enjoying it, and we encourage everybody just to like and subscribe, because that's how to help us, and that's how we can grow, and that's how we can ask for more things and progress, etc. So Andrew, it's great to have you back. You may as well pay that £20 to Kenny via PayPal, because he won't be back in the podcast. So I'm kidding, wouldn't do that to Kenny. And so thanks everybody for watching, and good to have you back, buddy. And thanks also Shona and Kenny for coming on.
Yeah, echo all of that, especially about how great I am. Folks, it's been a pleasure as always. We do it for you guys. As Stevie says, like, share, subscribe, all the good stuff, because it helps the pod grow. It helps us keep doing what we're doing. And until we talk to you again, bye for now. Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Clyview Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions Limited, and CSD Air Conditioning, along with Art of Gold. Thank you for listening or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.